Welcome to the Operate Intelligently podcast. I'm Brian McDonald at Dude Solutions. Today, joining me is Paul Lachance, Senior Manufacturing Advisor with Dude Solutions. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brian. Pleasure to be here.
And Paul, we got a great topic today. It's a very hot topic, not just in our industry, but in general, and that is the Internet of Things. And of course, the Internet of Things, also known as IoT, involves a lot of different things. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, you've got a manufacturing background, and I've worked some in manufacturing, and I remember, early on, manufacturing industrial networks were really just about recording data and collecting data. But now, with the Internet of Things, they're kind of taking that to a whole new level. And how can other industries kind of learn from what manufacturing has done in this area and use it to benefit their facilities in other areas?
Well, collecting data in a manufacturing facility, whether it being from production assets or from buildings, has been around a long time. A lot of it was proprietary type networks that lived within those facilities and would collect data, typically metrics around production or alarm type situations. It was all proprietary though to the network. The Internet of Things is very similar in concept. However, now you're making it a lot easier because the data is going to be moving through the cloud. You don't have to necessarily go through proprietary networks to get to that type of information. So whether it's data from your manufacturing production assets or distribution systems, the same concept carries over to your facility, your HVAC systems, your fleet vehicles, anything that can have metrics broadcast from those assets and collected. In our case, for the betterment of your maintenance operations, it's applicable to really any industry. But the concept of IoT and collecting that data has been around a long time, really with a strong background around HVAC. So that really covers any industry that has assets that need to be monitored.
Yeah, and I know probably the most common example people know is like the Nest home thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's one touch point where we've got a device that's collecting data, and based off what we tell it to do, it can make changes as well as control it remotely. And I think that's one of the other key points you said, how these were kind of closed networks. Unless you were there on site and plugged into them, you really couldn't do much. Now we have just huge flexibility in being able to monitor and control remotely. The data's in the cloud. We have smart devices that give us so much level of control.
And I agree with you. These devices, first off, they're a lot easier to find these devices. Their costs are lower because they don't have to go through the proprietary network like a Nest device. You can put them where you need to have them, and through Wi-Fi and through the internet, the ability to control them bi-directionally becomes a heck of a lot easier. There are all kinds of similar industrial type sensors that can be retrofit even in older environments that can be controlled in a similar manner as a Nest type device for that bi-directional control.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I know when I did some early work on industrial networks, one of the breakthroughs was getting these bit level devices mapped to a byte level device. And I remember when one of the integrators told me that kind of, you had to remember back of like, oh yeah, these things are simple on-off devices. But now we've gone so much beyond that. So how do companies really kind of get started with IoT?
First off, you need to find the right expertise to help analyze what you have within your facility. So some facilities are brand new. Your assets are new. The HVAC, the production assets, they were just installed in the last year, 2 years, 3 years. In newer environments, there's a high probability that the assets that you've installed have connectivity built into them. There's already data that likely can be broadcast. The challenge is to find out how to access that information. And it takes some expertise to do that. So whether an organization has an in-house controls engineer who was part of the setup of that environment, that can know that data is there and can harness that data to some consolidated environment, or do you have to rely on a partner who can come in and analyze? It's nice to think that we can go out and buy a bunch of, we use the Nest examples, and just plug them in and place them all around your organization. And there are in some cases you can do that, but it still takes a level of expertise to analyze the assets you currently have. What could they provide in terms of alarms and metrics? If the assets are older, and we have some clients that have assets that might be 100-year-old, could be steam-powered assets that are completely mechanical with very little electronics, on it, maybe have a little gauge on it or something. But even those older devices can be retrofit with more modern sensor technology that does not have to rely on a proprietary network, that can use the cloud, can use the internet, it's part of the Internet of Things, that can broadcast those metrics. What we advise our clients to do is you need to have some expertise in that area that can analyze the assets you have, find out what you can get at, and bring that data back to a consolidated location so you can act upon the information that's being tracked. But you got to start, it's a journey. You got to start off on the basics. In many cases, some of these modern assets, it's relatively simple to start extracting data off of that and tie it in with other systems. For your older assets, it may take more effort, including the retrofitting, but it is a process that you work through. We believe in phases, baby steps, start to go a little more advanced. Ultimately, though, when you start to retrieve that data, that's where it can really pay off in terms of superior maintenance.
Are you looking for a way to get inspired about your work as a facility or operations professional? Join us at our annual Maintenance and Operations Conference, Dude University in Raleigh, North Carolina, May 5th through 8th, 2019. You'll be able to attend educational sessions about your day-to-day work, meet professionals from across the country that work in your and other industries, and enjoy food, friends, and fun in the Dude's hometown. If you register this year, you can take advantage of our all-inclusive Dude deal. Learn more and register online at university2019.com.
And for companies that are investing in this technology, what are some of the immediate benefits as well as maybe long-term benefits they're going to see off of it?
Well, the immediate benefits, if you're able to harness that IoT data off those assets, the two primary use cases are alarm conditions. The asset is in distress. The asset needs help, maybe right away. And to have those work orders, and that's what it translates to in a CMMS system, to have that work order auto-populate in your system that your asset is in distress, that maybe it's down, maybe it's about to go down, but to not have a human have to identify that right away. It's identified directly in your maintenance operations software. Good maintenance operations software is going to do automatic notification to the appropriate people, be it a technician or a production supervisor or a building manager, if it's your HVAC, but to have that happen without humans having to discover there's a problem. Have it happen automatically, and then let the maintenance operations software kick in to do what it does best. It's just you take the human hands out of creating the work order. It's faster, it's more accurate. The other use case is more usage type information. Other metrics such as condition-based monitoring, things like how clean are the fluids, how many hours does this asset run, how many widgets have you produced. Those types of usage-related metrics can indicate that you need to perform more preventive type maintenance well in advance of when you need to do it. And that can ultimately replace a more calendar-based system. So one of the short-term benefits of this is calendar-based maintenance is great. We always recommend you have a solid preventive maintenance plan at minimum on a regimented routine. But if you could have the assets tell you based on their actual usage when you need to maintain them, that can be a lot more accurate. And that can really translate into improved savings, such as, you don't have to just requisition people and take the parts when it doesn't make sense. You're doing it when you really need to do it. So those immediate benefits can be very helpful profitability-wise or cost savings to our clients.
Yeah, as you were saying that, what I was thinking is inventory can be such a big drain on a company's finances, and so the less time you have stock parts or replacement parts sitting in your inventory, you're saving money, so you're getting more of that true just-in-time ordering.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. The combination of the benefits of a maintenance CMMS type system, to know when accurately you need to do your maintenance, and then to, at that point, notify somebody like a parts procurement person you're going to need the parts, or to automatically have some sort of requisition created the parts you're going to need. A just-in-time system is fantastic. So the combination of the quick notification on an intelligent fashion, coupled with other benefits of a CMMS, maintenance operation system, to help you with your parts ordering, of finding the right technician to do the work, who's available at that time with the right skill set, all the other parts together, it's where you really start to optimize your maintenance operations, which can be great from a profitability or from a cost saving standpoint if you're not a for-profit, for sure.
So, Paul, that's a great example. I wonder if you could expand a little bit more on that ROI.
There's an example that I like to use where the ROI can really kick in. And first off, I'll say right off the bat, more preventive maintenance is better than not enough preventive maintenance. But in some cases, it's possible to do too much preventive maintenance if you're doing it on a calendar basis. So an example that I'll use, we're going to use a manufacturing example for this one, but it really translates to facilities or non-manufacturers as well. So say, for example, you're doing a monthly PM on an asset. And let's just say it's an expensive, large asset that you have to do, and you're doing it 12 times a year. And you do that PM. When you do it, you've got to take the asset down. You got to shut it off to do the PM, which means I can't make the product that I need to make. So there's a cost to that organization to shut that asset down. You also have the parts and the labor that you need to do. And you could calculate, what does that cost me to maintain that thing 12 times a year? And you got to do the maintenance. I'm not trying to say otherwise. If you fast forward to an IoT enabled environment where instead of every 4.5 weeks, once a month, that you're doing that maintenance, if the asset's telling you based on how often it's running, that maybe you only have to do it every 6 or 7 weeks, not once a month, but more like a month and a half. You do the math. Instead of 12 times a year, whatever you add up those costs, I'm really doing it 8 times a year. That's 4 times a year less. I no longer have lost the production abilities of that asset 4 more times a year. I'm not using the parts. I'm not using the labor. And I'm getting just as accurate maintenance performed on that asset. It should run just as well, but I have it available more often. I have less unplanned downtime. So this translates to real profit savings if you are a manufacturer. If you're not a manufacturer, if it's more of a facility situation, I still have to maintain those assets. I still have to climb on the roof, or my contractor has to climb on the roof to work on that HVAC units. I have to still shut it down, which is going to impact the experience of the people in that building, in that area. You're doing it less. So, but you're still getting the solid maintenance that asset needs to do. So again, I'm not advocating doing less maintenance unless you can do it intelligently. And when you can, that creates great savings for an organization.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're right in that with the manufacturer, it's very easy to say, okay, when we have to stop the production line and we know we're losing so much. But I think for governments and schools and other companies and organizations that, when they have to shut that facility down, that can have a huge impact as well within their community, within their kind of ecosystem. Because, as we know, just a school shutting down for an afternoon unexpectedly, the whole air conditioning system goes out and it's too hot. Kind of train wrecks. It's almost a domino effect throughout the community. The parents have to take off work. Other considerations have to be made. So I think it is really good for other organizations to realize that it keeps their facilities running smoothly and saves them on the bottom line through that initial investment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you take we'll take a school for example. You may be on a calendar basis to maintain some HVAC year round. You may be asked to go in and maintain an asset at a time of year where that asset's not even being used, but you're performing maintenance on that asset as if it's being used. Fast forward to an IoT enabled, more of a predictive or usage-based environment where that asset's not going to tell you to maintain it until it needs to be maintained. And so that will be better. It's just a better way, a more intelligent way of performing that maintenance.
So I want to ask you about kind of your parting guidance on companies looking to get into the Internet of Things. With any popular topics, there can be a lot of noise out there. And so sometimes I know our listeners and others might be sitting out there saying, I know maybe the low-hanging fruit, but what are some kind of the hidden, kind of traps that going into this organizations might face?
Well, first off, I'll tell you that it's a hot topic. You said it yourself. It is a hot topic. It gets a lot of press, and there's a lot of information flying around, which may give organizations some anxiety. Do I jump on this? Do I need to get on this right away? I'm here to tell you that the IoT and enabling that data to drive superior maintenance is going to be around for a long time. We're seeing a shift in how maintenance gets done when you go from calendar to more usage and alarm oriented. But you don't need to rush to do it. There is time. Your CMS operations software partner should be able to handle that data when your organization, when your facility, when your assets are able to deliver that data so you can act upon it. You really need to take a holistic approach at all of the assets that you want to monitor. You have to take a holistic approach at how you're going to get the data off of that, and you're very likely going to need some expertise to help you do that. We are not yet at the point where you can just go out and buy a bunch of sensors and just start duct taping them to your assets and expect you to have an IoT-enabled, more predictive, usage-based system. Maybe someday we'll get there, but there's still time. And there's expertise that you can draw upon through your maintenance operations software partner or your control engineer or through consultants that can come in and analyze, first, what do I have? What data can I get today? How do I get it back to a central location? How do I tie it into my systems? But I always caution people from, say, jump right into this, feet first, and rush to this. You have time. You have time to think this through, because ultimately you do want all of your assets to participate in this. You want to grab as much data as you can to drive the maintenance. You don't want to be overwhelmed. This can be an overwhelming topic. It is still very early in this evolution that we're seeing in maintenance. But it's going to be here for a long time. And eventually it'll become commonplace. For now, I would continue to read up on it. I would look at having some assessments done within your facilities to see what data is there or what you might need to retrofit. Work with your manufacturing operations CMMS partner to see can they handle how that data could come in and drive that maintenance operation. But look at it in phases, that sort of crawl, walk. Eventually you will be running, but you need to start somewhere. But you still have time. This is going to be around for a long while.
So I think that's some great advice you have out there for organizations getting into it. And I couldn't agree more. I've seen it in the same in my area with digital technology. It's you try to do it all at once. It's very hard to do. So I want to thank Paul coming in today to talk about the Internet of Things. We'll have some links in the show notes if you want to learn a little bit more. And until next time, thank you for joining us on the Operate Intelligently podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Operate Intelligently podcast. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a review, and you can even email us at dspodcast@dudesolutions.com.